Life sometimes puts the heaviest burdens on the smallest shoulders. Imagine a boy who lost his father at a very young age. He buried the pain in his heart, but instead of falling apart, he stood tall. He held on to his motorcycle, and he clung to his dreams. That boy grew up. On the track, he scraped his knee on the asphalt, left his rivals behind, and achieved what others said was impossible. Once, as a child on a stage, he said, "I will be a rider. I will be a world champion." And years later, those words were no longer just a dream. They became reality. Today, he is not just an athlete. He is the pride of Turkey, a world superbike champion, the man who gave BMW its very first world title in superbike history, and very soon, the first Turkish rider to compete in MotoGP. This is not only the story of Toprak, it is the story of those who cling to their dreams, of those who rise again each time they fall, of those who never give up. Toprak Razgatlıoğlu was born in 1996 in Sakarya, Turkey. His story was never going to be an ordinary childhood tale, because from the moment he was born, there was a sound echoing in the house, the roar of his father's motorcycle. His father, Arif Razgatlıoğlu, was deeply passionate about motorcycles. He wasn't a professional racer, but the bike was his lifestyle, his symbol of freedom, his dream on two wheels. For most, a motorcycle is just a way to get from one place to another. For Arif, it was life itself. Little Toprak touched the throttle before he could even speak. He tried to climb onto his father's motorcycle before he could even walk. The smell of gasoline, the roar of the engine, the heat of the exhaust. These were the fragments of his childhood memories. But life is cruel. At a very young age, Toprak lost his father. For him, it was not just a personal loss. It was the collapse of an entire world. In a child's life, a father represents more than security. A father represents dreams. And when that was taken from him, Toprak's world fell silent. But in that silence, something began to grow. He made a vow to himself. "I will finish the road my father could not. I will go where he couldn't." That promise became his compass. Even as a child, he began chasing a dream much larger than himself, and fate placed someone in his path, Kenan Sofuoglu, Turkey's world champion motorcyclist. Kenan was not just a mentor, he became a father figure. He corrected Toprak's mistakes, protected him when he stumbled, and gave him the strength to look ahead. From that moment on, this journey was no longer just one boy's path. It became the hope of a nation. There is a special moment in Toprak's story. Long before the championships, when world titles were just dreams, he stepped onto a very different stage, Turkey's Got Talent. For those who don't know, this is the Turkish adaptation of the global Got Talent show, where ordinary people showcase extraordinary skills. Some sing, some dance, some perform unique acts. And on that stage, there was a boy. Toprak, still a child, was part of a motorcycle stunt act. He walked forward, took the microphone, and with a shy but determined voice, he said, "I will be a rider. I will be a world champion." The audience smiled. Maybe they thought it was just a child's fantasy, but that moment was more than television entertainment. It was a declaration. That little boy was announcing his destiny to the world, and years later, when his dream came true, people would remember that stage. In 2014, Toprak entered the Supersport World Championship. He was young, inexperienced, but his courage on the track was unlike anything anyone had seen. His specialty was braking. While other riders hit the brakes 50 meters before a corner, Toprak waited until 20. He risked everything, yet he never lost control. He wasn't just riding the bike, he was becoming one with it. When he lifted his first trophies, there was a fire in his eyes. It was the echo of the words he once spoke. "I will be a champion." From that moment, the world began to notice him. A Turkish boy was making his mark on the international stage. In 2019, he joined Yamaha. The world was now watching him. And then came 2021, a year that would go down in history, because in World Superbike there was a king, Jonathan Rea, 6 consecutive titles. Nobody believed his throne could be shaken, but a Turk stood in his way. Throughout the season, Toprak was fearless, leaning into corners, his knee scraping the asphalt, making breathtaking moves that left fans speechless. And in the end, history was made. Toprak Razgatlıoğlu, 2021 World Superbike champion. This was not just his victory, it was Turkey's pride. For the first time, a Turkish rider was world champion. But the story didn't end there. In 2023, he made a bold decision. He joined BMW, a risky move, because BMW, despite its long history, had never won a Superbike world title. And in his first season, the challenges were immense. The electronics were different, braking was difficult, and the setup often failed him. Race after race, he struggled to find the performance he wanted. Many said, "It won't work with BMW." But Toprak did not give up. After every race, he stayed in the garage for hours, working side by side with the engineers, learning every detail of the machine. The season was filled with frustrations, but he never backed down. And then came 2024, the year that changed history. With BMW, he claimed the world title. For the first time in history, BMW had a World Superbike champion. That victory changed not only Toprak's destiny, but BMW's as well. And once again, the world saw, wherever Toprak goes, he rewrites history. For most riders, a World Superbike title is the peak. For Toprak, it was just another step, because his eyes were always fixed higher. MotoGP. MotoGP is the summit of motorcycle racing, the place where the fastest, the bravest, the most skilled battle. And in 2026, Toprak will become the first Turkish rider to enter that arena. He reunited with Yamaha. He signed with Prima Pramac. The headlines screamed, MotoGP has found its new star. And in Turkey, millions proudly said, our first MotoGP rider. Toprak's journey is not only the story of an athlete, it is the story of a nation. For years, motorsport lived in the shadows in Turkey, but now a Turkish name echoes in MotoGP. This is the road that began with Kenan Sofuoglu and reached its peak with Toprak. And for young people, it is the strongest message possible. It doesn't matter where you start. What matters is where you are going. For the world, it carries another meaning. Very few riders in history have been Superbike champions and then moved on to MotoGP. Toprak not only represents Turkey, he is writing his name into the history of motorsport. The story of Toprak Razgatlıoğlu teaches us this. Life is full of obstacles. Sometimes you lose your father. Sometimes you don't have the resources. Sometimes nobody believes in you. But if you believe in yourself, if you refuse to give up, if you rise every time you fall, in the end, you will win. Years ago, on a TV stage, he said, I will be a world champion. And today, those words have come true. This documentary is not only about Toprak. It is about everyone who refuses to abandon their dreams, because dreams belong to those who know how to rise after they fall. And now, his journey continues in MotoGP. And we will witness history together.
I think your career is very dangerous now. You know, no one win with this bike. I say, hey, calm, because we have some plan, you know.